Hello, this is Julie Candler with the BBC News. President Biden has voiced his support for a ceasefire after 8 days of violence between Israel and Palestinian militants during a phone call to the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. A White House statement said the US was working with Egypt and others towards halting hostilities. Earlier, the US again blocked a UN Security Council statement calling for a cessation of violence, saying it was instead working behind the scenes to achieve results. Since the violence began, 200 people have been killed in the Gaza Strip. 10 have died in Israel. From Washington, here's Barbara Pletasher.
There is a pattern in U.S. response to the air wars with Gaza that in the initial phases, they don't necessarily come out and criticize Israel. It seems there's sort of an implicit understanding that Israel feels it needs to do a certain amount to destroy Hamas infrastructure and the ability to continue to fire missiles. And then if the conflict keeps going on for a while, in the past, U.S. administrations have begun to be more critical publicly and to join UN efforts in calling for a ceasefire. So that may be the pattern that we see here, although the Hamas firepower this time has been quite intense.
A shipment of medicines and medical supplies from Egypt has been delivered to health officials in the Gaza Strip. More than 1,250 Palestinians there have been injured in a week of Israeli airstrikes. Egyptian ambulances have also been ferrying injured Palestinians to hospitals in Sinai and Cairo. The World Health Organization has urged Israeli and Palestinian leaders to protect health workers and infrastructure, adding that the coronavirus response has been severely affected. Much of the Gaza Strip is already without power. The Indian state of Gujarat is being pummeled by the most powerful storm in the area for decades. About 200,000 people are being evacuated from its path. Cyclone Tauktae travelled along India's west coast with wind gusts of up to 200 kilometres an hour. At least 20 people have died as the storm uprooted trees and tore off roofs. The BBC's Samina Sheikh is in the coastal town of Veeraval.
It was very heavy rainfall today. I was there on the beach starting from the morning. Evacuation was in the process. Fishermen were parking their boats. Coast guards and local police officials were there evacuating the place. Local authority has so far evacuated 200,000 people from the coastal line, and they are now sheltering inside the government schools and government colleges.
The U.S. Supreme Court has agreed to hear a case from the state of Mississippi challenging Roe v. Wade, the 1973 ruling which gave American women the right to abortion. It's the biggest abortion case to come before the court in 30 years. And the first time its new 6-3 Conservative majority will consider the highly charged issue. World News from the BBC. Spanish officials have accused Morocco of deliberately allowing 3,000 migrants into the Spanish North African enclave of Ceuta on Monday. Morocco has been angered by the arrival of the Polisario Front leader Brahim Ghali in Spain. Here's our Europe regional editor, Mike Saunders.
They began arriving during the night. Some swam out beyond the border fences that jut into the sea. Others came round on lilos and rubber rings. Later, they simply paddled around at low tide. Moroccan border guards did nothing to stop them. Spanish officials say it's blackmail. They accuse Morocco of using migrants to show their displeasure that Spain is treating the Polisario Front leader Brahim Ghali for COVID-19. It's nearly half a century since Polisario began fighting Morocco for control of the former Spanish colony of Western Sahara. A ceasefire declared 30 years ago was breached last year.
The United States has announced an increase in the number of coronavirus vaccines it will send abroad, as warnings continue about a lack of supplies for poorer countries. President Biden said 20 million doses of vaccines approved for use in the US would be shared by the end of June. Members of Brazil's indigenous Yanomami tribe say they've been attacked by a large group of illegal gold miners inside their reservation in the country's Amazon region. This is the second attack against the Yanomami in a week. Leonardo Rocha reports.
Tribal leaders said that armed men arrived in at least 15 boats and fired tear gas canisters at them. Thousands of gold diggers operate illegally inside the Yanomami reserve. Indigenous rights groups say they're probably trying to intimidate the tribe so they don't block access to the river areas where they prospect for gold. The number of attacks against tribes like the Yanomami has increased sharply since President Jair Bolsonaro took office, promising to allow mining, logging and farming in indigenous lands.
BBC News.